A few months ago, I was in what in Mongolia is called Egir, in the capital of Ulaanbaatar. Egir, for those of you who are not familiar, is a tent-like structure covered with felt. But this was no ordinary gir. It was inside the presidential palace. And it was beautifully decorated with paintings and artifacts recalling the rich history of Mongolia, who once was the largest empire that the world has ever seen. And I was there as your guest, Mr. President. Mr. President, as you will recall, at the end of our meeting, I invited you to visit us here in New York. While this conference room is not quite as magnificent as your gear in the presidential palace, I hope you will feel as at home here as you made us feel when we visited your very impressive capital. I have now twice been to Mongolia in the past few months, and I must say I'm truly fascinated by your country because of its vast territory, amazing history, and unique geostrategic challenges, and its huge potential. I will also have to inform you that actually Mongolia has one of the fastest growing economies in the world, or maybe the fastest growing, I think. And we are looking very much forward here at IPI to working with Mongolia for many years to come, thanks to a memorandum of understanding for strategic partnership that I signed with Foreign Minister Bold, who's sitting here, in April. So, ladies and gentlemen, the President has just begun his second term as President of Mongolia. He is a previous two-time Prime Minister and held the positions of Deputy Speaker and Majority Leader in Parliament. Indeed, he is one of the architects that have, maybe the architect, which have transformed Mongolia from dictatorship to democracy within a generation, since he was one of the leaders of the peaceful revolution in 1990 that ended 7 decades of communist rule. Since then, he has initiated and piloted the country's major social and economic reforms, which include fighting corruption, liberalizing economic policies, creating a free press, reducing bureaucracy, and speaking out for environmental conservation and implementing judicial reforms. And he was a principal drafter of the national constitution that guarantees human rights, democracy, freedom of religion, and free speech. This has not been an easy task, I assume. But I am sure, Mr. President, that you will sympathize with Genghis Khan, who apparently once said, and I quote, "Conquering the world on horseback is easy. It is dismantling and governing that is hard." Unquote. Recently, our guest today has been leading the country's so-called third neighbors, in plural, policy that is opening up this once close country to new partners and to investors. For example, Mongolia has recently chaired the Community of Democracies and last year joined the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And IPI has had the privilege of working closely with you and your government, Mr. President, both related to your good work in the Community of Democracies and in the OSCE. Mr. President, once again, welcome, and we look forward to hearing more about Mongolia's democracy at home and its partnerships abroad. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. President Terje Roald Larsen and distinguished participants and ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy to be here. And you know, Mongolia is a great nation with a rich history, and we are proud people, and we are particularly proud to be active participants in global dialogues ranging from regional diplomacy to international economic advancement. Mongolia is an old nation with a young heart. On one hand, a deep history, and on the other, we are firmly focused on our bright future. we have many exciting opportunities in our horizons. As we navigate our future, we look to our past to help guide us. Mongolia was once the largest land empire on the face of the earth. However, this great empire treated all subjects fairly and equally, promoted tolerance and respect for local tradition and religious belief. Mongolia and the world have much to learn from our nation's history. I am not a warrior in the traditional sense, but I am proud to have waged a lifelong campaign to bring democracy to our people and to be their elected representative. I confess that I am not the world's greatest horseman, but I am nevertheless proud to be the son of the herder who brought me home from a tiny rural hospital on horseback. Of course, Mongolia has changed much in the 600 years since our great empire. We have made perhaps our most dramatic changes, though in the last 23 years, forging our way to democracy, realizing the benefits of freedom and openness and opportunity for our people, and becoming an example for other nations which do not yet offer these freedoms and this openness at home. I think I have many pages of paper, and I would like to put this paper aside. And now I would like to talk with you from my heart. I think why Mongolian transition may represent interest to the people. I think I would like to answer to this question. And first, Mongolian transition was peaceful. You know, Mongolia located during socialist time between Soviet Union and People's Republic of China. Now we are in between Russian Federation and People's Republic of China. And we have two big neighbors, one of them biggest population, one of them biggest land. And we're proud to have two our big neighbors. And between them making that transition to democracy and to market economy was quite challenging. But we managed our transition without not shedding single drop of blood, not shattering single window. And I think that was really amazing, peaceful transition. And in June 1990, we had our first parliamentary multi-party democratic elections in Mongolia in June 1990. Actually, we began in our transition in a cold winter in late of 1989, at the same time which happened in Eastern Europe. And many people know the history about Eastern Europe transition, but many do not know still about Mongolian transition. Because of that, I'm just a little bit talking about this transition. And also one interesting thing in Mongolian transition was that we made that transition, dual transition, political and economic transition, economic reform at the same time. You know, there are some people say that it's not Asian way to making political and economic transition, economic reform at the same time. But we broke that old stereotype. And we show to the world it can happen in Asia, everywhere, you know, enjoying the democracy, enjoying the right of the people, you know, right to assembly, right to express themselves. It's not the Western value, it's our value. Now, ordinary herdsmen may say in Mongolia, you know, I have 500 sheep. This is mine. They never shy to criticize president, but they know that president one day will not confiscate their herd or their sheep, you know. And because of that, I think that's the freedom for our people. And this is the one thing we are really proud of. And other thing also different than the in a countries in our region, we choose in 1990 parliamentary type of power, not presidential. You know, some former Soviet Union states choose the presidential type of power and they became more autocratic. But Mongolians choose parliamentary type of power, means more consensus-based, more inclusive decision-making. And we are now still with the parliamentary type of power. And second part of talk, I would like to little bit focus on economic side. Why Mongolia is interesting country to invest, to do business together. And first, of course, we believe in the market economy. And before 1990, our GDP produced almost 99% state-owned enterprises. Now, more than 70% of our GDP produced by the private corporations. And also, as you told, that Mongolia in 2011 we had the fastest growing economy in the world, 17.5%. But now our economic growth little bit going down, but still we have two-digit growth, 12%, around 12 or 13% we will have that. And IMF and World Bank predicts Mongolia will have that kind of growth, two-digit growth for 20 years. I believe in that. Other thing, we believe in a rule of law. In 2011, Mongolia was fastest growing economy in the world. 2012, also we got one good news. That was that Mongolia is fastest decreasing country in terms of the corruption index by Transparency International. In 2011, we ranked 120. In 2012, we ranked 94. And we are really committed. As president, one of my priorities to reform our judiciary system. It's starting from the police and, judiciary judges and court and prosecutors and all those systems. And we have to, our judiciary system, like in other centralized power country, they were serving the power, but now we have to make them to serve our people's interest. And we are making that progress. We are really committed to become one of the countries in our area, not ruled by men, ruled by law. That's really important. Other thing quite attractive is Mongolia has a young, educated population. And after 1990, when our country opened up, many Mongolians went to study abroad, many thousands of them. Now they are returning to our country. And also by the number of the users of the cell phone and internet, I think per capita, Mongolia is one of the leading countries in the world. And we have roughly 3 million people, 1.5 million square kilometer land, more than 40 million cattle. And I think also we have more horses than people. If you like to ride horse, come to Mongolia. And also why Mongolia is attractive for doing business, I think because of our two neighbors. We share with China 4,700 kilometer land border, with Russia 3,600 kilometer border. And Mongolia is one of the 10 countries rich with the mineral resources. And we have those minerals which really needed in other countries. And because of that, I think Mongolia is becoming one of the hot destinations for investment. But of course, we have many problems there, and we have resource nationalism in the country. We need to improve our laws and legal system. As an open country, we never hide our shadow. In Mongolia, we have one of the vibrant civil society, one of the free media. There is no control over media entity. In Mongolia, 3 million people, we have more than 60 TV channels, more than 200 websites, 300 newspapers, and none of them controlled by government. And of course, they are helping me. If they see that we are making some mistake, and if they ask tough questions, if they ask responsibility, I think we can do our job better. Our government can do their job better. We are really committed to make work there independently. In Mongolia, I think there are issues now we are focused. I think we need to build more infrastructure, railway, and also that's the great opportunity to invest. And we need to extend our power supply, power stations. Also, Mongolia is dependent on foreign oil, almost 100%, but we have resources inside of Mongolia, resources related with the renewable energy. 1/3 of our territory belongs to the famous Gobi Desert, 300 days sunny, and we have wind. I think also we have coal. Today you can extract electricity from coal without, very small emission. And also that's the great advantage. We have a policy, less import and more export and more value-added production. Those are in the economic side I would like to introduce. Why Mongolia may be interesting for ordinary people, for tourists who want to come to Mongolia. If you like freedom, if you like democracy, if you like democracy are running there with the challenges, opportunities, come to Mongolia. Yeah, it's a great destination. If you like history, if you like wildlife, if you like, open steppes, if you like exotic way of life, come to Mongolia. 40% of our people is still pursuing the nomadic way of life. And please, those are the really, really interesting destination to go to Mongolia. And our regional role, of course, I think first, now Mongolia is becoming one of the role model for those countries who want to make same kind of transition in our region. And we are very closely working with the Kyrgyzstan, for example. When Madame Roza Otunbayeva was elected as president, she sent first letter to me. Please, President, help me. We would like to bring more consensus-based, decision-making body, means from presidential power to parliamentary power. But you have that for 20 years, and we would like to learn from you. That was interesting invitation, and now we are working with the Kyrgyzstan very closely. They changed their constitution, their laws, and they are now more oriented to the consensus-based decision-making, mechanism. That's really good. We are working very closely with the Myanmar. I met Lady Aung San Suu Kyi, and they are really interested in our experience. Why our experience is interesting for them? Our experience is quite down-earthed, quite practical. Western experience, of course, they are far by distance. America is far from those Asian countries. We are closer for them. And our experience is also only 20 years, We had a similar system, and we had those challenges. I think all those countries entering to the great big transitions in Middle East, in other parts of the world, I think they can learn from Mongolia. But we don't have anything to teach others, but we have something to share with others because we made many mistakes. And I think that's really good. And just last July, this year, I think we gave our chairmanship to the El Salvador. We were the chairman of the Community of Democracies for 2 years. Imagine that some years ago, Mongolia had a similar system to those communist countries today they have, but becoming 20-some years ago, becoming the leader of the world community, world democratic movement. That was really amazing achievement. During our chairmanship, we had several initiatives: democracy education, zero tolerance of corruption, and development of the civil society. And 2 days ago, with the President Obama, we launched together civil society initiative to support civil societies worldwide. And that is really good thing. I think civil society is the soul of any nation. Civil society equals to democracy. If you have vibrant civil society, I think your people can feel that freedom. And we are really committed to develop, to support our civil society. Also, we launched the initiative Asia Partnership for Democracy that come up with the Asia Network for Democracy. And there are some Asian countries, democratic countries, joined to that. South Korea, Indonesia, and also other countries, India. And also we launched last year one initiative called with the Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asia security. I think Mongolia would like to play kind of role. During Cold War, there was the Helsinki process. And Mongolia can be Helsinki process in Asia. We would like to bring those countries in Northeast Asia, you know, bring in Ulaanbaatar to have talks between them. And I think we invited 2 times Japanese and North Koreans. They had 2 times in Ulaanbaatar meeting in our capital city. Why Mongolia is good location? Because we have no big interest, no big conflicting interest in this issue. We have only one interest, to contribute to the global good and understanding between countries. And you know that Mongolia is one of the 20 largest peacekeeping troop contributing country in the world. And now our peacekeepers are serving in more than 10 countries. And last year I was in South Sudan, and we have in South Sudan more than 850 personnel, peacekeepers in South Sudan. I think mainly those are the things I wanted to talk to you. Maybe now it's interesting for you. We come up to the question and answer. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. President, your accomplishments, your transformation of Mongolian society are great advertisements. And I think many of us are booking our flights to Ulaanbaatar right now after that speech. The President very kindly has consented to take your questions. And I think I'm going to start with a question of my own, and then I encourage you all to raise your hands and I'll call upon you. Mr. President, I was struck by the fact that you said that Mongolia is a model for other countries in your region, and that you sort of suggested that you portray yourselves that way. I wanted to ask you about the 2 Koreas, because you are a country with relations with both North Korea and South Korea. Have you had any success in persuading North Korea to become more like Mongolia?
I think I had the pleasure to go one time to North Korea. That was in 1999. And spent there 1 week. And of course, we have very critical thinking in Mongolia. But when I go there, I think I saw difference. How big things, how can you change your country? And I saw there is other way of living, you know, good way of living. And I think that was really striking. And we have a really good relations with both Korea. South Korea, we have our embassy. In North Korea, we have our embassy. And North Korean leader, grandfather of this young leader, 2 times visited Mongolia. And still we keep our government relations. We call the government commission. 1 year we have meeting in Pyongyang. Other year we have meeting in Ulaanbaatar. And they are really interested in some reforms, in economic reforms, and how we are doing. And I think we can helpful for them. We would like to help, and one thing we stand very strong, that we have to keep our channel open, our channel hot. And of course, other big countries maybe have some sanctions, some other things. We would like to keep that channel open and exchange as more people, you know, bringing more people to Mongolia and having more dialogue with North Korea.
Thank you. Now, if you would raise your hands, I'll call on you. And please wait for the microphone to reach you. And when you get the microphone, hold it very close to your mouth and speak directly into it so we can all hear. I'll start on the left here. Well, actually, Mr. President, I'm going to take 3 questions at once.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
So on the left, and then in the front row here, John Hirsch, and then William Verdone. So please. And please introduce yourself.
Hi, Rolf Rosenkrantz with DevEx. I have a question about the foreign investors and foreign aid donors that you work with. You mentioned Russia, China, the US, one might add the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, Europe. They all have different aid and investment models, and they differ in the things that they request from you, from Mongolia, for instance, whether they would want democracy improvements or land or whatever it might be. So I'm wondering, how do you choose your partners, and what do you want in return? How are those exchanges working?
Excellent. Okay, we'll go to another question. John Hirsch.
Mr. President, thank you very much. This was an absolutely wonderful presentation. So you've described these changes over 22 years in a peaceful way. I think it would be interesting if you could talk a little bit about how you brought the changes about. In other words, what were the constraints? What were the difficulties? What was the resistance to these changes? And how were you able to overcome those constraints, both on the political and the economic side? So if you could sort of spell that out a little more, I think that would really be very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
And I'll
thank
go
you.
to the third question.
Please.
William Verdone.
Thank you, William Verdone. Congratulations for the July 10th election. And I think the launch of your paper, which I think is called Arkadlal, am I pronouncing it right? It's called Democracy.
Archlal, yeah.
Well, now I know 3 words, Genghis Khan and that one. Up until the year 2001, on the map of China, Mongolia was part of China. In 2002, it no longer is part of the Chinese map. What differences do you see persisting between you and China? I know there are many wonderful things going on with commodities, but what are some of the issues that both countries disagree? Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. President, you could answer those 3.
Okay. First question related with our partners. And you know, when we were really lucky when we began our transition in August 1991, I think Soviet Union collapsed. Our economy relied on Soviet Union almost 100%. And we had a subsidy. 30% of our budget was subsidized by Soviet Union. Imagine that one day your big brother or your father, mother passed away, and you were very young, and that was a really difficult time. But during that time, we got many good friends, and we became the member of the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and others, and the Western countries helped us, and including the government of the United States and other NGOs. And that was really good. When we lost one friend, or we got many friends there, and that actually made our transition more smoothly. And I'm really thankful for that. And since 1990, we have a term in foreign policy. In our policy, we call it third neighbor. We have a 2 neighbor, and we regard all other countries, all other organizations other than, our 2 neighbors, we call it our third neighbor. We consider America our third neighbor, EU our third neighbor, and those countries our third neighbor. Of course, third neighbor. And of course, in Mongolia, we have great presence, Chinese presence and Russian presence, and we would like to see also more presence from our third neighbors. And that's in our country's interest. Also, in economic terms, it's good for balancing those economic interests, and through that also all other strategic and political interests. And when we began our transition, we listened to our partners who are helping us to them. Now, of course, we are listening more to our people. And as a president, first I put our nation's interest, of course, equally our partners' interest, always nations' interest. And that's one thing. We work with our partners. I usually say that to our partners, if you come to Mongolia, if you would like to do business or to be partners, three things. Remember, one, of course, rule of law. You have to implement law. You have to respect our law and nation's tradition. And second, of course, transparency, inclusiveness. You have to find with the people, with our people, common language, with the local people, if you would like to make business. And and of course, environmental issue, environmental concern is one of the concerns in Mongolia. And most of those wealth actually located in a Gobi area where is water scarcity and very fragile environment. And we are taking care of our environment at the high level. Second question, what kind of challenges you faced? I think there were the many challenges. One of the most enduring challenge, I think, mindset of those people, changing their mindset. You can change your country politically, political system. You can change economic system. You can change even social system. But changing the mindset, is still after 23 years, you see those hardliners, you see those minds. I think it requires maybe generational change. And now this is going on in Mongolia. Of course, other issues related with the poverty and, gap between poor and rich. And we have that problem, and also rule of law things, when you got a lot of money, if you have a bad governance, I think country gonna be in trouble. And because of that, we have to pay in our judiciary reform more attention. There are many challenges, but one thing one thing we're proud of, that our openness. We never hide our shadow. We give more power to our people. We try to give more incentive to our civil society, to our media. And I think one of the strongest part is this one. I usually believe that in Mongolia, rather having president more power, it should be people should have more power. In some countries, one man or one family make most of the decision. We know that. But if you have that, that's very fragile country. That's very fragile system. If we give more right to our people in a decision-making process, if our people participate, if our 3 million people participate, I think Mongolia is going to be a big, strong country. I usually say that some people ask me, President, please help me to make this one, please give me a favor. I usually say that, I'm the only one guy in Mongolia, even though I'm president. But, these things we should ask from our people, from our parliament. It makes our life and our country more powerful than one man making any decision. Third question, I think, about China. And, just last week I met Chairman Xi Jinping during our meeting in a Shanghai Cooperation Organization, high-level meeting in Bishkek. We had a really good, really nice, frank meeting. And President Xi told me that we respect your independence, we respect your people's choice, and we would like to develop good neighborly relations. I'm at the same page. We don't have any big political issues, any other issues. We have only interest to cooperate more in economic level, in infrastructure, in other issues. There are issues I think we can solve between our countries, and of course we respect China, and I think that's the biggest and fastest growing market close to our country, and we have to take advantage. And that's the one thing. There are more close things, more things very close. We understand each other than the differences. Okay, that's my take.
Okay. We'll take one here in the front row and there in the third row. Do I see a third hand? Very good. Okay, so Ann Phillips first. And once again, we'll take 3 questions at once.
Okay,
if
that's
okay.
good. Yeah.
I too want to thank you, Mr. President. This was an extraordinary presentation. Your country has done an extraordinary job. I just think it's wonderful. Congratulations to you. You spoke about you have a young educated class or group.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your education? Is it obligatory that everybody go to school? Are your teachers indigenous Mongolians? How did you develop your curriculum? Is it controlled by the government or is it locally controlled? So I'd be very interested to hear more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the second question here.
Yes, it's Rhonda Haubin, and I'm a co-author of a book about the internet and netizens, and I'm also a journalist at the UN covering for a online column at taz.de, which is Die Tageszeitung. And my question is, you say you want the people to have more power, and this is a time when many people feel that's possible because of the internet and the ability of people to participate via the internet and what we call netizens, of being empowered by the internet. So I'm wondering what your country is doing to make more of that kind of participation possible. I know there are efforts, I don't know the details, so I'd appreciate hearing some of what the efforts are. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the third was, I think there was one there. I'll come to you in a minute.
My name is Sally Cater, and I'm with the U.S. Federation for Peace. I want to thank you so much because I've learned a lot in the short time I'm here. When I think of Mongolia, of course, we have the very romantic vision in our heads about the horsemanship and the beauty and all of that. But it's wonderful to hear what you have accomplished. My question is, you are inviting the third neighbor to come and invest there. Are you giving a certain incentive to foreigners to come to invest? Thank you.
All right, can you take those 3 questions?
Thank you. Working? Yeah.
The first
On education. I think one thing we inherited from socialism, I think that's the education. And the literacy rate in Mongolia quite high, 97%, 98%, and very high literacy rate we inherited from socialism, and we continue to commit that to keep that rate. And also, of course, I think key to our success is our people. When you think about the people, I think you think about the education and health system. Those two are really important. If you have educated, healthy people, I think your nation guaranteed for the progress, for the success. And because of that, I think we really now we have some resources, and first our priority is education. And just last year we made decision, and this year we will implement that. If Mongolian young men, women enrolled in a 20 best universities in the world, we will pay full tuition. Full tuition. If they enroll 21st and 200, we will pay a tuition. Also in a 2100, I think there are measures, if you are enrolled in those measures which needed in Mongolia, also we will pay tuition. That's just one commitment. We are really committed to that. And I think now we are working how to implement that philosophy. And I think education system, and we are trying to make really good one. And just now, these days, we are opening, for example, Mongolia German joint university for engineering. And our prime minister visited Japan. One of the projects was, to support, to prepare our engineers in Japan. 2 years study in Mongolia, 2 years in Japan. Maybe we are estimating 10,000 people for coming years. And those are our vision. I think we are really committed for the good education. Second question related with the internet and local people's power. In our budget, we have 5% of our budget should go directly to fund people's initiatives. And I think that was our initiative, and we will increase that. I think when people got that money, now that mechanism works like that. In a small town, 3,000 people, and they know that we got maybe $200,000. And they gather together what kind of problem we have. Okay, we have a street light problem. We need to make our street with the light. We have, green. We need to plant more trees, or we need to garbage collecting. We have big issue with the garbage collecting, or we have road, They can choose that, and they can put that, and from that money, they directly fund that kind of incentives. I think when you give to the people usually think about their life, their surroundings, People never think about how to spend this money in government project, And people think about themselves. When they take care of their life, when their small town became more light, more greener, more nice place to live, your country gonna be more nice place to live. And we try to solve our people's problem during socialist time, 70 years, in democracy, 20 years. We couldn't do that. But when we give to people that money, that incentive, people are doing that. And I'm really committed to that. I think in terms of the democracy, Mongolia, we are planning to go very far. Now we are working with Switzerland. 2 years ago, I visited. I really like the Switzerland experience. They have direct democracy. Most of the decision they ask from the people. Most of the decision, even they stop those laws if people don't like. And that's really, really interesting. I think in a small country, we have to ask our people. And now we are working on such kind of laws, and we will have more direct democracy. Not only representative democracy, we will have maybe most of our decisions should be made by in those areas where people live. And we will go further. And I think with that also other countries may interest. Third question related with the investment. I talked about investment in environment, and I think our parliament now passing two important laws, investment law. We had a foreign investment law, other things we tried to make, investors good, but now we have to take, there is no limit, foreign investor or local investor, but investors only interested in one thing, that the legal system, that political system should be stable, the tax system. And we are making that for investors. And we will learn from our experiences. Also, we are working on the law investment fund and other things. And after this meeting, after two days, I will go to Chicago, and those people invited me, and I will speak there also about these investment things.
Excellent. By the way, on the
and also yesterday we signed the agreement with the U.S. government, transparency agreement, which negotiated for more than 3 years. Also good. Yeah.
When you mention freedom of the press, that includes the internet and
everything.
Social media.
And social media, Twitter, Facebook, and I have Twitter, Facebook, and that's good. Yeah. They criticize me and they ask questions,
Excellent. I had a question here in the third row, and okay, all the way back, David Andelman, and then here on the side. And I think you could handle 4.
Okay.
And we'll go for, you're first?
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. My name is Nkechi Ogbodo, and I've recently founded a nonprofit organization that empowers young girls through education. And my question to you is, what is the level of participation of women in the political process of your country? And also, do you have any provision in your cabinet that empowers or that encourages women to participate in the political process of Mongolia?
Good question. The second one I cited, yes, this woman there, exactly. I'm sorry, and then David.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking as an alumni of Mason Fellow, I'm interested in hearing your perspective regarding what do you think, to what extent you benefited from the Harvard experience in terms of your continued commitment to public service, as well as your efforts to bring about all the changes to the country. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I was going to ask the President in form of that question. I think I've never seen a curriculum vitae that has the USSR's Army Academy and the Kennedy School of Government on it. So that will be part of the answer. And David Andelman in the back.
Yes, I'm David Andelman. I'm the editor-in-chief of World Policy Journal. I had the privilege of spending about 5 weeks in your country only 3 years ago.
Hold the microphone up, David.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about what President Obama mentioned at the UN yesterday on American exceptionalism. That is to say, I would think American leadership, what America would like to see as its leadership role in the world. And you are sandwiched between, as you quite rightly pointed out, two countries, that Russia and China, that don't necessarily share this perspective of the United States. And when important issues come up, like Syria, Iran, and so on, in the United Nations, where do you come down on all of that? And how do you, in fact, reconcile that American exceptionalism with you're being surrounded by two countries that don't share that view necessarily?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I had the fourth here.
Thank you, President. My name is Mikiko Sawanishi, working for United Nations Democracy Fund. Mongolia is a very important partner for us. And also I went to Kennedy School, so that's a kind of a connection. And my question was already asked by the lady just in front of me, the women's the status and the lesson learned and the point for improvement. It's very important for other regions, including my country, Japan.
I see we have no graduates of the USSR Army Academy here, so Harvard wins 2-0. Could you answer those questions?
Yeah, thank you. I think women. Historically, Mongolians, in our life, I think women played really big role, and equally men, and sometimes more than that. And when we were the big empire, our men went on the horseback to invade, big spaces. Of course, one thing, it was really interesting now, fascinating to see that from our experience. Last year I was in Iran, for example. We were there 2 centuries, and how our history is related with the Persia, Iran, and other countries. And always our Khan, our king, when they were there, they brought the law. During Genghis Khan, one thing, he ruled actually under written constitution. That constitution called great government. That's really interesting, rule of law. That was our tradition, respecting the law, respecting the rule of law.
Time of Genghis Khan?
Genghis Khan, yeah, under the written law.
The 12th century?
12th century. That constitution called great government. And that was really interesting. Also in that, there is a clause related with the women's rights, related with the environment. And those were really interesting. Today, in our law, you asked the quota system. Do you have any quota system? And we have in our election law for parliament, I think 20%, yeah? All the not less than candidates of for the parliament should be 20% women, and we give that right. I think quota system initially, I think, is good in order to support bringing more ladies to parliament. in last, I think thanks to that, in the last parliament we had only 2 ladies, 2 women, and we have 76 members of parliament. In new parliament we got 11. Actually, that number tripled. And because and that was really good. But I think I'm the really fan for the supporting the women in Mongolia. I always talk about that. You think about your mother, your daughter. I think women, ladies, from the nature, they see life more full. If women enter, if they're a child or old man without tea or something, women will feel that. They will jump to the little boy to give milk or something. But men just jump to the sofa to see the TV. Usually women take care more. And from our experience, when our mother get the candy or something good, they usually keep for their children. When men get something good, they eat first. Mothers usually share. I think that's the sharing is in their blood, in their nature. Also, I never saw, never heard about the bloody dictator, woman dictator. I think did you hear bloody woman dictator? I think almost none. I think when women come to power with their nature sharing. Also, I think ladies are less corrupted than men. I think that's when women have more high positions in your country, in your organizations. I think country benefits from that. Your organization benefits from that. Because of that, bottom of my heart, I support ladies. I support women. That's our policy. Harvard experience, I was one of the leaders of the democratic movement in Mongolia, and I graduated my school in 1998. You mentioned about the Soviet military school. I studied there for 5 years in majoring in military journalism. And I was military man and at the same time journalist, and that was interesting. When I came back to Mongolia, we thought that something wrong with our country, and those perestroika glasnost, you may remember from the Gorbachev time, those are very slow in Mongolia. We wanted to speed up that, and we created together first non-governmental organization called Mongolian Democratic Union. And we had our first demonstration in December 10th, 1989, and I was moderator of that demonstration. And after that, we got first newspaper. I was editor-in-chief of that newspaper. You mentioned the Archel, means democracy.
And it was a dissident newspaper, wasn't it? It was an independent newspaper.
Independent newspaper. And those are the... if you would like to learn more, of course, you can type to the Google Elbegdorj Tsakhiagiin, and you may find, my Wikipedia page and others there. Harvard experience, I think, after being in a politics, in a democratic movement for 10 years, I felt that I have to go somewhere to refresh myself, And I sent application to the Kennedy School, and they accepted it, and they gave me full tuition. They offered me full tuition, and I was very lucky. I learned for 10 months English in Colorado in Economic University there. After that, I gave the TOEFL, and I was accepted to the Kennedy School. I studied there 1 year, and I got my master's in public administration from there. And last year, when I was here, I visited my school after 10 years graduating Kennedy School, and I gave how I'm doing, during those 10 years. And that was really great experience. And I really value my experience at the Kennedy School at Harvard. And I'm still wearing the, ring, Kennedy School ring. And I value that. And I'm trying to raise that name. That's a really good brand name, Harvard is. I think it's really helpful. One thing was very different. Of course, those classes which I took there, and when I came back to my real life, that was very different. In a classroom, in a paper, everything is plain, but in a real life, everything is And that was quite challenging. And I'm doing good. American exceptionalism, you know, Syria, Iran, and those are the big question. And I know that not only me, and there are many people wrestling with those issues, even in America. And usually in my home, most of that time I see CNN. When I go to my car, I listen to the BBC radio. That's my thing, and I'm sometimes wrestle, you know, with those opinions. They are talking about those things. That's the something, and I have my personal, of course, personal take on those issues, but that's not maybe interesting for you.
Actually, it is, and I wanted to ask you about that very point. I'll tell you why. I have read the Wikipedia page, and it's pages, not page. It's quite an extraordinary life, and Mr. President, I'm delighted to be here with you. I was particularly interested because in reading about you, I wondered how this all happened, and let me explain what I mean by that, and it is personal. You are the child of a nomadic herdsman. You were educated in the Soviet system. Somewhere along that lines, you realized that was not what you wanted for yourself or for your country, and you end up at the Colorado School of Economics, and you also end up at the Kennedy School in Harvard. You just mentioned Mikhail Gorbachev a moment ago. I wanted to ask you, can you remember back when you first thought, this system doesn't work and I want to live in a different system and propose it for my country? And was Gorbachev one of your models? Were there other models? Yeah. How did that happen? It's a personal question, but how did you personally realize we need something other than this?
I think one thing I remember when in the first day when I was at the Kennedy School, there was question why you choose Kennedy School, why you are here. And I told them, you know, I think I'm really fortunate. I'm now at the Kennedy School, you know, one superpower, and I'm the fortunate to study in two superpowers, you know. I studied in Soviet Union for 5 years. I have that experience. Now I'm in America studying at the Kennedy School. Of course, one superpower collapsed, and I think this superpower will last long because you respect the personal freedom. That's the thing I think I like in this country, respecting the personal freedom. When you talk about Gorbachev, I enrolled in military school in Soviet Union in 1983. During that time in 1983, just Gorbachev became the Secretary General, and he announced his policy, perestroika and glasnost. Mm-hmm. And during that time, there were many journals and also newspapers. And I read, that was really eye-opening experience when I read bad things about Joseph Stalin, you know, how he was bad. And when I read about Lenin, you know, those things, articles, also he was really bad guy, and wow, you know, that really changed. You know, we thought, you know, those are the maybe God, you know, something God-like people, but those are not the same as they taught me in middle school. In my classes. I think that helped to change my view. But also one thing in Mongolia is our people are different, you know. Our people are independent because we, you know, in a girl, herdsman boy, even one family can live without any connection to the town or to the shops. You know, 5 months, 3 months, we can survive. My father and not going to the shop in a town, you know, we have meat, we have milk, and my mother can produce from milk 18 types of products. And you can use those hides and cashmere, wool, and you can survive. And 5 months, not going to the city, you know, a small town, and that's the independence, that's the freedom, and that's in our blood. Also, you know, before 1990, during socialism, our political decision-making, political power was in Kremlin. when you exercise freedom, when you choose your people, your leaders, I think you will get the political independence. And when you choose your leader, those leaders will work for you. When Kremlin choose your leaders, they will work for Kremlin. And those were the very simple issues. And because of that, we were quite successful changing our country, who is, of course, Gorbachev is one of my favorite leader. And when I just elected, second time, Gorbachev called to me and he congratulated. And he said, Mongolia has a better democracy, better system than in Russia. And that was the Gorbachev saying to me, and congratulations you. And that was interesting. Of course, my real hero is Ronald Reagan. During his visit to Reykjavik, first visit meeting with the Gorbachev and other places to Kremlin, when he talked about the evil empire, when the Soviet correspondents asking about he's also saying on evil empire, all those things actually changed. And last year you celebrated 100 years of Ronald Reagan, and there was USA Today had a new special edition. In that newspaper, only one foreign leader talking about Reagan, that was me. Huh. And I think the Reagan and Margaret Thatcher changed it.
I was going to mention Margaret Thatcher, because she was the first one to spot Gorbachev.
Yes.
And she called her friend Ronald Reagan and said, talk to this guy, and that started it.
During, in 90s, in my wall, in my room, there was two photos. Not the Gorbachev, not the others. Margaret Thatcher photo and Reagan photo. Still, I keep that.
Excellent. Anna, I want to give you and then, okay, one, two, three. Okay, Anne first.
Yes,
It's a second question.
No, it's not a question. I really feel constrained to convey to you. My name is Ann Phillips. I'm on the board of directors of the International Peace Institute. And I just want to tell you how profoundly appreciative we are of your being here today. We know your time you're very busy while you're here, and we're very grateful to you for being here. And I also want to say that having met you, so to speak, hearing you speak and hearing what you have to say, I truly feel that the people of Mongolia are very, very fortunate to have you as their president.
Thank you.
And that's said from my heart.
Thank you.
Susan Gittleson and then Harriet Mandel.
Susan Gittleson. Mr. President, we are very fortunate to hear you speak about your experiences with some of the superpowers of the world. After all, you emphasized you're between China and Russia, and you came to America. And now you're at the United Nations. And some people are very cynical about the United Nations and wonder, how can the United Nations be democratic and sponsor human rights and transparency and all the virtues that you've been speaking about? What are your views on this matter from seeing things closely and wanting to build a better world?
And then Harriet Mandel.
I'm Harriet Mandel. I'm founder and director of the Global Roundtable, which is a civil society diplomatic program. Mr. President, I really am so touched by your presence here. I'm reading here that you're called by your supporters the golden swallow of democracy, that you've brought spring after a very harsh winter, and I must thank you deeply. You are one of the most charismatic leaders that I have ever met. You are charming, and I am going to rush to visit your country. And I'm just saying this to wish you all the best, and you are making history. There's always a question, are you following history or making history? And you are charming, and I just really want to speak from the bottom of my heart, thanking you very much for this opportunity to meet with you. Thank you.
William, you want to speak again?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. President, can I persuade you to become an American citizen and run for president in this country? You are brilliant, man, and it's an honor to be here and to hear you. You're amazing. Thank you.
I think I'm going to. I was just going to say that I'm a journalist, he's a journalist, and I can't let this keep going on with just all the praise after praise after praise without a question. So I do have a question I'd like to add to the chorus here, and that has to do with your economy, which you mentioned. Your economy or your country is very rich in mineral extractive products. And there is the famous thing called the resource curse, where countries that are structured that way find they cannot make economic progress. You must be aware of that. What are you doing to make sure that Mongolia does not suffer from the resource curse?
I think one thing is really good now. We have that kind of international knowledge through internet. I think in terms of the internet users, in terms of the connectivity, I think there is no developed country or underdeveloped country. You have email address, I have email address, I have access to Twitter, Facebook, to everything. You have that here. And using that technology, I think the internet, those technology making us more equal, more connected. Also, we can benefit from that world, brain power, world, that good information, expertise. And because of that, I think our people are really benefiting. When we make bad decision, bad decision than other country, they see that. This is bad decision. There are better experience. Why you are not making this kind of decision? And that make, advance our country and our government. And last 2 years ago with the President Obama, also we announced one initiative called Open Government Initiative. And now my government, my parliament working to make all those laws related in line with that initiative. And also I announced one initiative in Mongolia, glass account, for example, glass. In every state body, in every governor, in every minister, every who are spending their budget, taxpayers' money, their account should be open, should be glass. How much money today you come from the Ministry of Finance to your county? How did you spend? That should be within 24 hours. That should be open on your website. That should be open for the people. I think people are not interested in the decision-making, politics. They are boring. People are interested in only in money. How these guys spend our money, taxpayers' money. I think if you have that accountable to your people, usually from that we will benefit. Next year, now we are going to discuss a budget draft. People usually call to you, you spend this money for your wife to go to the capital city. That's not good. And you have to put this money for the child care system. Or, that was not good line in a budget. You have to eliminate that. You make that. People are participating, drafting our budget, making that decision. I think now we are working on this law, for example. And those are really make difference in my country. I think thank you for your compliment. Thank you for those really great, human-hearted, those good saying in address me. I would like to invite you to come to Mongolia, all of you. Please, when you go there, you will feel President Elbegdorj is average guy. You will see there many brilliant, young people, many people who has a great value. Related with the freedom, related with the liberty, human rights, rule of law, transparency. I think there are many people in Mongolia to tell, to say good things to them. And I think in terms of the value, I would like to mention only one thing. There is no big country, there is no small country in terms of the value. If you have that value, you can become, great nation. And you become the value, and between our countries, value connection is very important. I really value that that connection. You asked about the UN. I think UN, of course, UN is really good institution that needed to us, and we know that UN is criticized from many sides, and many conservative people criticize UN, and I am of course one of them. But I believe we can reform our common home, UN, and I'm in this week I have only business with the two big institutions. One is International Peace Institute, other is UN. And I'm thank you for that. It was really good meeting, and your president, Terje Orwell Larsen, told me that there is International Advisory Board, and he wants to accept me to that, and I'm happy to join to your family. That's the one thing I would like to say. Other thing I usually say to my friends, to my American friends, please pay more, not less attention. You guys paying more, a lot of attention to your enemies, bad countries, which is harming your interest. Also, pay not less attention to your friends. Mongolia is one of your friends, and because of that, I think that's really good. And now, America helped us. Now I think we are partners for prosperity, partners for our common value, and our men and women served together in Iraq, served together in Afghanistan, in other hot spots of the world. And because of that, I think we have that thing, and we have that value. We dream together, we protect together, we work for together. And I hope to see you again, and thank you. Please come to Mongolia. And I will really